Julie Broadway, President at the American Horse Council. Thank you for joining us for our fourth quarter webinar entitled, Where Have All the Veterinarians Gone? We would encourage our participants to put yourself on mute if you are not speaking so that we can minimize background noise. We are recording the session, so if you need to step away or you want to come back and listen to a specific component of this webinar later, feel free to do so. We'll post that on our website in the next day or two when we can get it all organized. We've got a great panel this afternoon, and I'm going to do just a little context at the beginning here, and then I'm going to introduce our speakers, and we'll have some Q&A with them. And so I encourage you to stay engaged and participate in the conversation. This is a really important subject. I found it fascinating when I was doing a little research on this, that I think most of us had a feeling post-pandemic that there was going to be a new workforce kind of model and culture was changing. But it really shocked me to see that we have such a rapidly diminishing supply of equine veterinarians. In 2021, the American Veterinary Medical Association reported 3,311 U.S. veterinary school graduates. Of those, 1.4%, 46, entered the equine private practice at graduation. Another 97, or 2.9%, entered equine internships. But the survey revealed that within 5 years, 50% of those young veterinarians have left the field. So we are seeing some real challenges. You yourself, if you're a horse owner like I am, may already be feeling this pinch because you're having to wait longer for veterinary services or not be able to get an appointment when you want it, or whatever that might look like. So I'm really excited about this conversation today. We're going to start with David Foley. David is the current executive director at the American Association of Equine Practitioners. He's been with them for a number of years. He became their executive director in 2000. He's a native of Kentucky, and he graduated from the University of Kentucky with a BS in agricultural economics. So he can look at this from a number of different angles. But I'm very proud to be a partner with David on a number of projects in the industry. He serves on our board of trustees at the American Horse Council. He's worked at the Racetrack Chaplaincy of America. He's been on the PATH International Board, and he's past president of the Veterinary Medical Association Executives and the Kentucky Society of Association Executives. So he brings a wealth of information with him to get us started. And I'm hoping, David, what you'll do is you will give us some context. Tell us how we got into this predicament and what research or findings you and AVMA have had to tell us sort of how we're going to get ourselves out of this predicament, if you will.
Well, I'll do what I can. Let me pull my PowerPoint up here.
I've got it. And while David's doing that, if you have questions as we go along, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll try to circle back to them. So there you go, David.
All right, thanks. Well, we've got an initiative that we've started, and we're really just kind of calling it Transforming Equine Practice. This has become probably the single biggest issue that the profession has ever faced, and the AEP is obviously quite concerned about this and has devoted more resources and efforts towards this initiative than probably anything that I can remember in my time there. And as you kind of alluded to earlier, we've noticed this attrition rate occurring for some time now. And, you know, we would see members leave and then we do exit surveys. Why did you leave? Why did you drop your membership? I'm no longer in equine practice. Why not? Salary and lifestyle. And so it had been kind of a trickle effect. We keep adding new members each year. We keep filling the bucket up, but there's a hole in the bucket. And so, as you said earlier on, that, you know, about 1% or so, and these numbers are a little bit, you know, you're talking about such small populations that, excuse me, a few here and there could skew the percentages, but basically less than 5% of the graduates in veterinary school are going into equine practice. Some, a very small percent, going straight into practice, and the rest going into an internship. And then, like you said, about half of them leave within the first 5 years. So what are we doing about it? Well, like I said, we established this as a primary goal of our strategic plan back in 2020. We put a task force together in 21, a retention task force, had a consultant kind of facilitate the work of this group. And we conducted interviews with, we went through this qualitative research process over the course of the year where we interviewed some key stakeholder groups. They interviewed students, they interviewed recent graduates, those that were 5 years or less out of school, and they also interviewed practice owners and had 60 or so interviews throughout the year, analyzed, and kind of lumped these things into different themes and created a list of kind of pain points that each of these demographics experience. So what are the things that emerged from these different groups that we learned? For students, the competition and pressure to do an internship, their fear of being unable to pay student loans because of the high debt load and the lower starting salaries for equine. They don't come out really confident in their practical equine skills. And so that's probably the reason for the internship mostly, because they don't really feel practice ready when they graduate. They're not really trained to understand pricing, the value of their services, and they're often discouraged from going into equine practice, and some from professors and some from other practitioners that have discouraged them from going into equine practice. And so those are some of the pain points that they experienced in our interviews. As far as the early career veterinarians, they were lacking mentorship from their employer. The on-call schedule was just too demanding, no time for family and personal interests. They had a lack of adequate support staff in the practice, either technicians or other lay staff. They struggled with how to set boundaries. The 24/7 and saying no was difficult for a young graduate. Not confident, again, in their day one practical skills. They felt isolated. There really wasn't a sense of community. They were kind of out on an island by themselves. Of course, the low income. They're pressured sometimes by their employer to not take time off. And then there were some comments about the boys' club and sexism. The practice owners have their pain points as well. An inefficient business model, difficulty hiring and retaining veterinarians. They fear raising their prices. They're unsure how to set competitive fees. They struggle with internal staff communications with the lay staff and with the associates. They're also reluctant to set boundaries with the clients for fear of losing accounts. High accounts receivable and poor collections. They have a difficult time paying attractive salaries to new graduates, managing schedules, and then struggling to establish a shared on-call schedule. And also the owners feel the competition from the lay providers like the equine dentists and the chiropractors and things like that. So we also went back and said, okay, what would be some ideal things that you'd like to see in practice? And the students wanted a stronger sense of community. They wanted, of course, to be adequately compensated. They wanted a work-life balance, a flexible work schedule. They needed education about business, client communications, and about well-being, and they wanted mentorship. Didn't see a lot of differences with the early career veterinarians either. They wanted time for friends and family, but of course, who doesn't want time for family and friends in a balanced work life? They wanted adequate compensation, flexible work schedules, support staff, support from the practice, especially with clients. They want to know that the management or the owners of the practice have their back, and they wanted to be in a healthy workplace culture and a sense of community. The practice owners told us that they needed more education on practice management and on communication skills. They needed a highly functional and support staff. They obviously desired a high demand for their services, respectful clients who paid their bills. They wanted to be able to collaborate with other practices instead of it being so competitive. Of course, time with their families as well, and a culture too. So what did we do with this information? Well, we had a board discussion in January of 22 and said, okay, what are the three things that we're going to really try to tackle this year operationally? And the one thing that came out initially was the internship experience. The majority of equine graduates go into an internship, and we're just grinding these kids up as soon as they graduate. They're working 100 hours a week. They're making $30,000 a year. They're supposed to be educational experiences, and that's why they do this, to grow their clinical skills. But they're kind of viewed oftentimes as just cheap labor. And so we need to change that perception. And so we put a task force together to really just deconstruct the whole internship experience and build it back again with a better designed curriculum and a number of other things, to try to just make it a more humane experience. We also thought we need to gather some practice owners, and have a summit discussion and see if some of these results that we got from our surveys, throw it against the wall and see what sticks. The other thing that was something that revealed itself to us, there's a couple of programs in veterinary medicine. One is called Decade One, and that is a peer group that they've been established around the country. Dr. Amy Grice has created this program called Decade One, and it groups about 20 veterinarians, associates, young veterinarians in their first decade of practice into peer groups. And they're from, geographically different parts of the country. And it's got a kind of a business curriculum, but they're together for 3 years and they develop relationship and they support one another. They're all fairly early in their career, but they're at different points. And so a lot of self-mentoring occurs in those groups. And when I was talking to Dr. Grice, it's probably been a year or two ago, and I said, how many of your Decade One members, since you started this in 2015, are still in equine practice? And like 95% were. So a light bulb kind of went off and thought, okay, well, wouldn't it be great if we could roll every new graduate into a Decade One group automatically to kind of create that support network? Another program we learned about called Mentor Vet, which started in the small animal space, is a mentoring program, and it's got more of a wellness, well-being focus than it does business, and it's a 5-month program. And so we thought if we can really, create some supporting groups for these young veterinarians to be involved with, that may go a long way. I don't think any one of these things is a single magic bullet, but the combination of them we think could be impactful. So yeah, I just talked about the Mentor Vet and the Decade One groups. So what we did as a result of that Practice Owners Summit was we formed the Commission on Equine Veterinary Sustainability. And within that commission, we have 5 subcommittees that are working on various aspects that kind of bubbled up out of the Practice Owners Summit and out of our interviews. One was compensation. Equine veterinarians don't start off making as much as their small animal counterparts. And I don't think we have to match small animal salaries. I think we just have to be closer than we already are. And so compensation is not the most important issue. It's an issue, but it's not the most important issue, but we have to do better there. And so we've just launched a compensation study just to try to get accurate baseline information. And the results are in from that. We had 1,300 equine veterinarians respond to that survey from all, forms of practice. And we're analyzing those results right now. But also this compensation subcommittee will be involved with trying to create models and teaching veterinarians about how to structure their fees, raising their fees, how to be better about their accounts receivable and handling collections to try to get compensation levels up, frankly. The internship subcommittee, this was the thing I mentioned earlier. It started as a task force. We just rolled it in up underneath the umbrella of this commission. And so they've had about a 5-month jump on the other groups. And so they're making quite a lot of progress in that respect. Of course, students, we wanted to evaluate, we have probably 35 student chapters, the AAP does, at all the veterinary schools in the US, Canada, in the Caribbean. We've got chapters at the Royal College in London and a chapter in Dublin as well. So we've got student chapters all over the place. And so we've been providing short courses and doing some things like that, but we really wanted to step back and just kind of take an audit of all of our student related activities to make sure that the things that we're doing are meeting the needs of today's student. As far as skills based training in particular is concerned. So that group is involved in that. The two other subcommittees, one is on emergency coverage, and that's a killer in equine practice. And there are some groups out there that have some practices out there that have really gotten this kind of figured out. They're doing co-ops and sharing emergency coverages, and younger veterinarians don't mind doing some emergency coverage. They just don't want to do all of it. And so trying to create a situation where there's a balance there is something that this subcommittee is working on, because this is a real problem in equine practice, of course. And so, you know, if you're a bigger practice in Lexington, Kentucky, for example, you've got plenty of veterinarians, and so it's not as much a problem if you're in a 1 or 2 doctor practice, of which about half of our membership are 1 or 2 doctor practices. Then it's really difficult to meet this need. And then the last thing really is kind of everything else, and we've lumped that into a group called practice culture, and it really is to you know, work in those areas that make up the culture of an equine practice. You know, staff communications, family leave policies, boundary setting, you know, how to develop creative work schedules, utilizing technicians better, all of those types of things. Excuse me. And so with the exception of the internship group, these others have just kind of started their work. There's also a piece of this relative to messaging for horse owners, because we want to make horse owners, clients, aware that this is an issue if you aren't already aware. And there's some things that you can do to help ease the strain. You know, the business hours piece up there at the top, you know, only contact your veterinarian after business hours for true emergencies, not just as a matter of convenience. Being a good client creates opportunities for your veterinary team to serve you and your horse better. You know, be receptive to and welcoming to veterinarians who may not be your regular practitioner, be it the veterinarian that's on call or perhaps a new young veterinarian. And also use the same clinic for emergencies as you do, or for your routine work as you do emergencies. A lot of times the veterinary clinic doesn't get called unless it's for an emergency. Respect your veterinarian's small business. Prompt payment of services is critical to ensure that their business stays sustainable. Being ready for the veterinarian, have your horse in from the field and cleaned before your veterinarian arrives, and to help keep everyone safe, train your horse to have good ground manners. So those are a few things that horse owners can do to help with this. And that's a messaging point we're going to be spreading far and wide throughout the next year. What it comes down to really is that we may end up having to make the work fit the workforce versus making the workforce fit the work.
Thanks, David. I'll open the floor for questions, and to get you going, David, I'm curious, in all of your research, did you find these challenges to have any differences, either rural versus urban or gender, or were they pretty universally the same issues for veterinarians, regardless of their own background or whatever geographic location they might be serving?
Yeah, I think it's there's really not a difference in gender concerns. The concerns are the same regardless of gender. I think a lot of it is generational. Honestly, I think older veterinarians that was just the job, and that's just what they did. And I think younger members they want more of a life and more balance in their life. Don't we all? And so you know, as far as rural versus urban, you know, there really aren't a lot of equine practices in urban areas, but if you consider something like Lexington, where there's a high concentration of equine veterinarians, probably the emergency coverage isn't as bad, though it's still bad. But in really rural areas where there are not very many other veterinarians around, then it's the emergency coverage issue. Is that this, you know, being a solo, I was talking to a solo practitioner in Minnesota the other day, and she's the only one up there. She's got nobody within a couple of 100 miles of her. And so she's doing everything. And she's like, I can't offer emergency coverage anymore. I've got a young family and I just can't do it. So that's the emergency coverage piece is particularly difficult. in the very rural areas.
Good enough. Anybody in our audience have a question for David? Throw it in.
I have
Yep,
a
go
question for you, David. So my name's Anna. I'm an attorney that practices in Florida, actually, and I also am a horse owner. And so I guess I have a question, like the collections thing obviously rings a bell. Is there anything like you're finding where like is malpractice a big issue for equine veterinarians? Is that and I guess really a question that also transcends a little bit broader. Is there anything maybe in the legal world we could offer support, like that kind of thing? Is there, I guess basically connecting with practice owners or any needs on that end?
Good question. I don't think the malpractice is a huge issue. There is most equine veterinarians are members of the AVMA, and through the AVMA, they have access to the AVMA's professional liability insurance. And so many equine veterinarians belong to the AVMA for access to the malpractice insurance. And I think that the PLIT is quite good at providing coverage for veterinarians and also legal assistance and licensed defense assistance, through that program. So I haven't heard of any issues particularly with that.
Thanks, David. I have one other question, and then we'll move to our next presenter so we don't run out of time. David, since you said we need to show our veterinarians some appreciation, is there a National Love Your Veterinarian Day? Is there a day to commemorate your veterinarian, or should we create one?
Maybe we should create one. I'm not sure that there is one. There may be a veterinarian day, but I'm not sure there's an equine veterinarian day. But maybe that's a good idea.
On our radar screen. Maybe that's something we can work on, David.
It's the boundary setting is so difficult because unlike a small animal practice where you may take your dog or cat in once every 6 or 9 months and you just see whoever's there, veterinarians, equine veterinarians are in relationship with their clients. They're friends. They vacation together, and so it's hard to say no when they call you at 2 o'clock in the morning. You want to get out there and do it. And in some cases, it's become a safety issue. There's been a lot of discussion, with the AVMA in terms of an obligation by veterinarians to provide emergency coverage. But if you look into, at an equine situation, if you send a young equine veterinarian out to a farm, and especially if they're not a regular client at 2 o'clock in the mornings by themselves, that's a safety issue, not just for equine, but for any kind of a livestock, bovine, whatever, veterinarian. And so some are just saying we can't do it.
Okay. You had a question in the chat there, and I told them we would be sure to do this. They wanted to know if they could get a copy of that slide, David, about how to be a better client. There would be some great.
It's actually an infographic that we ran on our Facebook platform, and probably was the most shared post we have done in 22. Actually, I think it allowed members to share it on their own Facebook pages as well, and it's a message that veterinarians don't want to whine to their clients about these kind of things, and so it's better we can say those things on their behalf better, probably. And so that
makes sense. Well, I'm really excited about our next speaker. I've worked with Dr. Eleanor Green in the past. She was a member of the American Horse Council's Board of Trustees for a couple of years there. But Eleanor is a professor and a dean emerita of the veterinary medicine at Texas A&M. She's now an independent veterinary consultant, and she also does some advising and consulting for Animal Policy Group. She has worked at a number of universities, so some of you may have crossed her path. I'm just going to give you a quick synopsis here. Mississippi State, University of Missouri, University of Tennessee, University of Florida, Texas A&M. So she's covered a large waterfront, and she's served in a variety of roles. And I'm always delighted to work with her, especially because she is one of my champions for women in the industry. She has been the president of 4 national associations, including AAEP, AAVC, ADVP, and AAVMC. So she is just a great person in our space and a huge advocate for the industry. So Eleanor is with us because she's got a new project that she's working on, and we invited her to come share with us what she's doing at Lincoln Memorial, I believe, Eleanor.
Yeah, that's it. First of all, thank you, Julie, for doing this. It's great to reach out to all of you who are in attendance and help you understand what's happening and then contribute ideas to us, because I think a lot of input makes for a great solution. So we thank you for that. I want to tell you about something exciting. I've been an equine veterinarian since almost birth, but not quite. I had to get my degree, but my mind was there earlier. And my husband is also a horseman and an academician. He has trained national champions, coached riders, judged the world show 13 times. And I mean, so we both are passionate about horses, and we got to thinking about this issue and what he brings from his animal science side, and what I bring from vet med. And we schemed up this program, and Lincoln Memorial University said yes. So let me tell you a little bit about it, because it's so beautiful in its ability to address a lot of the issues that David just covered. And I won't go back through all of them. I'll just tell you what the program does, and then you can make the matches yourself. But first of all, what this is going to be is a 6.5-year program from beginning of undergraduate to graduating with your DVM degree. And so that's going to shorten the curriculum. And the students that are admitted to vet school when they're admitted to undergraduate, unless they really mess up on their grades or their citizenship gets out of whack. We all know that that's is a potential issue, but doesn't happen very often with these wonderful young people. But then they immediately go in. So a lot of the stress that they feel in trying to get into vet school is going to be diminished somewhat by that. So, and it also decreases their tuition debt load, so they'll graduate with less debt. There's another thing I'll mention in a minute about debt. The other thing about it that's different about this program is that rather than just finding out in your class who's interested in equine and then allowing them to concentrate or track equine, we are actually recruiting, pardon the term, horse kids. We're really trying to get people out of the horse industry where they came through rodeo or pony club or, off of ranches and farms. It doesn't matter if it's a ranch out west or a farm in Kentucky, but young people who really already have a lot of experience with horses and already understand the industry. And then we're going to have them come in as a cohort. We have about 25, and then there's going to be a lot of peer-to-peer learning and all too throughout this program. And another unique feature is that there are going to be 6 immersive paid internship programs. So they'll diminish their debt, and they'll also learn a lot in the summer. So that their first one starts even the summer before they get admitted to undergraduate. And then the summer after between their first and second year, and then they start in veterinary clinics. And there are 6 of them all summer. And we've talked to the people who are going to do this, and they're not going to use them as cheap labor. Even with internships later, where David, you made that comment about we don't want the internships to be cheap labor. We're trying for these young people to not be just cheap labor too. This is an educational piece to this, and the people are committed to doing that, but they want these young people because they're smart and they're devoted and they're hard working. And so they're lining up to get them, and we're excited about that part. And then the other thing, David, that you mentioned was a lot of these students really aren't confident in their skills, either as students or as new graduates. And so we think that if we have this background of horse knowledge, and then we really embellish that with all these enriched activities, including peer-to-peer and these summer internship programs, and they're still able to track equine as usual, we think that when they graduate, they are going to be more confident, because they will know so much more. We think they're going to command a higher salary, and when I say command, earn it and justify it as well. And we think that they're going to have a great deal of appeal at graduation as well. So this program is going to address a lot of the issues that David talked about. These young people are already going to know what it's like to be an equine veterinarian through the immersive experiences that they have. And we're really hopeful that this will help diminish the turnover, because when they enter, they're gonna know more, they're gonna be more confident, they're gonna be remunerated better. They already have a sense of community because of the cohort groups, and so they graduate with this community already, and they can tie back to this program with that sense of community and support, and then tie into all that AAP has to offer. And we think this is going to address a lot of those issues, and we just can't wait to get started. The first class, we're already taking admissions. The first class starts in the fall of 2023, which means that it actually starts in the summer of next year with their first internship. So I'd love to answer any questions anybody has, because I don't want to go too long, but if anybody has questions on, that's kind of it in a nutshell. But I will tell you that we're really excited about this program and feel like we're really giving back to the horse industry and equine veterinary medicine with this project.
Eleanor, I'll get you started. What are some ways that the industry can make young people knowledgeable about this other avenue, so we can get them in that pipeline, so they don't miss this opportunity?
Exactly, Julie, and thank you for asking that question, because we're trying to get the word out. I mean, we have a lot of the horse industry has stepped up, and they're letting us do podcasts, and they're putting us in their magazines and in their advertisements and all that. So we've got a lot of visibility there, but we need each and every person out there to find these young people. And this will be nationwide. It isn't going to be just one state. This is a nationwide program, hopefully one day international. And everybody here needs to let people know, certainly Horse Council and certainly AAP. So there's some obvious avenues for getting this information out, but we're anybody who knows anybody in the horse industry and marketing and press releases and that sort of thing, it just let us know. We want to get the word out.
Great. Maybe you can work on some infographics we can put out through social media, Eleanor, and kind of let it go viral if we can. I speak at capstone classes at all kinds of universities, and I think this is a great topic to put in front of these students who think that they want to go to veterinary school, but they're not certain, and they're maybe getting their equine science degree and they're exploring their options. So lots of opportunities I see there.
Yeah. And if anybody again has any questions, just call me. And if for other information, just go on the LMU website. It's there. The applications are up. You can find out information there. But again, you can call me or Dr. Jim Hurd. Call us directly. We're glad to answer any questions.
Great. You got a post out there in the chat already, Eleanor, inviting you to be an interview on the Certified Horsemanship Association blog, saying, hey, they'd be happy to do something. So, yeah,
absolutely. I'll talk to anybody about this anytime. Oh, that's 24/7, including weekends, by the way. I'm a terrible role model.
Thanks, Eleanor. So I'm also happy to have with us a great resource from Texas Tech. This is John Descanato. Did I get it close?
You are close to Scania.
Scania, thank you. He's the Senior Associate Dean for Academic and Student Affairs at Texas Tech University School of Veterinary Medicine. He has a very distinguished career and has worked in this field for a long time. He's led the development of 2 new veterinary programs and currently oversees a very holistic admissions process at Texas Tech. So John, tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing.
Sure. So equine practitioner for the last 34 years. And when so I was one of the founding faculty members at Lincoln Memorial University, and I started there as the director of large animal clinical skills to try to impart those day one competencies to those students. And so we took kind of what LMU was doing and, if you will, even put it on steroids here to a bit. And our holistic admissions process means that once a student has a 2.9 overall GPA and a 2.9 science GPA, we do not look at their grades ever again. So a lot of programs, a quarter to half of the admissions process is grades based, or it's based on the graduate record exam, and we've eliminated that. What we're really interested in is the story of that student. And so for us, it's specifically looking at equine students, it's what have you done in the past? How have you lived your life? What is your story? And so you might be a 4.0 student, but if you don't have a great story, you would have a hard time getting in here. And so it's kind of a different mindset to look at admissions from that aspect. Our program has another really kind of unique aspect, and it has to do with affordability. So we're one of the lowest tuitions in the United States. We're at $22,000 for tuition and fees, and a lot of people believe in exactly what we're trying to do to bring people into the profession and to educate them. And so our first class, just being the first year of our new program, we had about 25% of their tuition and fees paid for. In the second class, now 150 students total, so 63 in the first, 87 in the second, had 28% of their tuition fees paid for. So really trying to pay down that student debt so that they can afford to go into practice and stay there and not be in a center city somewhere in a small animal practice. But then we took the clinical skills program that we had at Lincoln Memorial and we expanded it. So our students have more than a full day every week of clinical skills. And we've sequenced it across 6 semesters and worked with practitioners to figure this out. But we want our students at the end of 3 years, at the end of 6 semesters, to be like they are at graduation for as many skills as we can get. And that'll enable them then when they go into their clinical year for us is out amongst with practitioners rather than a bricks and mortar teaching hospital. We want our students to be contributing members, to be productive. Example of that, everybody got a handheld ultrasound the first week of class. And they've been ultrasounding pasterns of horses, nephrosplenic ligaments as first year students. So we're really trying to build their skill level across many, many semesters so that they're really, really good. A lot of people will say that, but it's hard to actually do it. But I think that we're going to achieve that. And then when they get into those practices, now they're going to have an enhanced experience to learn even more and be able to do even more. And as Eleanor was mentioning earlier, those students actually do get a higher salary amount coming out of what we call community-based or distributed learning models. So most of your veterinary schools in the past have a teaching hospital, and those teaching hospitals see a lot of tertiary care cases. Well, they're not the common cases that the students would see every day. It would be uncommon or not very many foot abscesses to come in, or skin problems, or your mild colic. You wouldn't see those at a veterinary teaching hospital, but when you go into private practices, you see those on a daily basis. And so what happens is those practitioners see not only what those students are capable of coming out of that preclinical program, but then they also work with them. For us, it's a month at a time. They're in a private practice. They work with them for that, and they can see what they're capable of doing. And so then they're able to garner higher salaries starting out because they are productive and they are making money for those practices. And so it's a multi kind of approach. We have practitioners who actually come and teach in our curriculum. So they have skin in the game. They are involved in the education of the students. And during that clinical year, it's not just, hey, somebody's riding with me on a call. It's now I have a responsibility as a teacher to teach the student to elevate their game. So we're really excited about what we're doing. We're a new school. We're only in our second year. So we don't have any graduates yet, but certainly have had graduates from Lincoln Memorial in the past and seen the success that they have had.
Oh, that's great. You're making me ask myself the question, and you guys submit questions now. You're making me ask myself the question, or actually 2 questions. One, is this a great opportunity to take vet techs who might have wanted to go to veterinary school, but for whatever reason didn't have the means or the GPA, and create a new pipeline to bring them through to get some more veterinarians that way who already have lots of great practical experience.
And we do have a number of technicians that come through veterinary school. That's certainly an avenue for them. I guess the unfortunate aspect about our program is we only accept Texas residents and up to 10% of our students from New Mexico. So, but there are many other veterinary schools that are starting programs now. A number of them have come and visited us about how we do things. So I'm hopeful that the hands-on clinical approach, the pushing of clinical skills activities, I'm hoping that that translates to a lot of other programs. And, you know, we get out of the classroom, we get on our feet, out of our seat, to be able to really educate these students a better way.
Great, great. David, I'm going to swing back to you because I have a quick question. Feel free to sip your water. I'm just curious, you know, the Professional Association of Therapeutic Horsemanship I've been involved with for many, many years. So many of their certified instructors, if you will, this is a second career for them. Are there second career opportunities, you think, in equine veterinary medicine that we should try to leverage?
I don't know.
People who've got years of wisdom to bring to bear, you know?
No, I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. If there's a somebody that may want to go back into the workforce, you know, a couple of days a week, that's certainly a possibility. We really haven't explored that.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Eleanor.
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing. People have asked why Lincoln Memorial University, and Dr. Descanio, you are very aware of this because you were there, but it's private. It's a private university and it's mainly professional schools. So it's medicine and dentistry and PAs and veterinary medicine and on and on. So it's mainly professional schools. But the interesting thing is, because it's private, when we posed this program to their dean, Stacy Anderson, and then their undergraduate dean, Beth Thompson, and then the CEO of the board, Pete DeBusk, who's intimately involved, and we put this forward. We asked them, Pete DeBusk, how long do you think it would take to get this program approved? And he said, 15 minutes. He said, I'm chairman of the board. And so the thing about it is that it is so flexible and it's innovative. And it's interesting too, because we asked the faculty about this, and did they realize, you know, what they had in their flexibility and ability to be innovative? And they said, yeah, they said all the faculty who don't like change have already left. Well, you know, not you, John, but he went on to a higher level. But the thing is that it is a very flexible school that we can be very innovative with. And so even what we've created right now, that won't be the stopping point. That's a beginning point with a lot of ability to move quickly. And then the other thing I would add is that we didn't, David touched on this, but didn't delve into it very deeply. And then Julie, you brought this up, but how do we surround these excellent veterinarians with the staff they need, especially techs, and how do we use them at the top of their license so that we can make life easier and allow all these goals that everyone wants? And LMU also has a technician program, and they're implementing a master's in veterinary technology too. And what we're going to try to do is align a tech program along with equine, and so we can really try to train equine technicians and then train these students how to use them through the program too. So just another ancillary benefit to what we're trying to get done.
Oh, I love that, leveraging all those resources. David, I see your wheels turning.
Well, I just was going to say that you know, we have a pretty close working relationship with the American Association of Equine Veterinary Technicians. And they're having similar issues. They're having shortages and workforce issues there as well. And so, yeah, there's a shortage of technicians too. And then oftentimes trying to convince the practice owner to bring technicians in for support is sometimes difficult. And we have, you know, a couple of programs that on our convention agenda this year that talk about, you know, effective utilization of technicians. They have their annual convention as part of ours as well. So hopefully that can improve.
How many total equine veterinary practitioners are there in the U.S.?
Well, that depends on what you call an equine practitioner. If that, you know, somebody that does 100% or 50%, you know, we have a lot of members that do mixed large animal, and some that even do large and small animal, and some that own an equine practice and a small animal practice too. We have, you know, probably 3,800 to 4,000 No, more than that, about 4,500 members in the United States. And then we've got members, of course, in Canada and in 60 countries around the world. So between veterinarians and veterinary students, we have about just over 9,000.
Well, the reason I asked David is, in my head, I'm doing my economic impact study. 7.2 million horses in the US. Divide that by the number of equine veterinarians.
Right.
That's a lot of horses that one veterinarian is serving on average. And I
Sure.
just
Yeah.
that. As we get ready for a new economic impact study next year, one of the questions that I've been asked to add is to inquire about the number of students in each of the equine science or equine programs in the universities to see what that pipeline looks like. How many are going through that program, and then sort of what does that tell us about what might be the workforce of tomorrow? So we've been thinking a little bit about that already and wondering if we're gonna see a trend that we need to sort of build some programming around, if you will. Other questions you guys have for our panelists today? I'm fascinated by this subject, and it's so important for us to have a sustainable, thriving industry that we have these kinds of professionals available for us.
Hi, this is Kirsten. I have felt the pain of veterinarians leaving my area. I went for like 5 months without a veterinarian just because no one could take new people. We had a lot of retirement, like you know what's going on. And I know a lot of it is the emergency situation coverage and stuff. And I know small animal clinics, there's always a after hours clinic you can go to. I know we're so limited in our veterinarians, we can't really set something like that up to rotate on call. But I just had a question about like, would any of the large horse industry organizations be able to provide, or maybe they already are, I don't know, like scholarships, any type of financial aid to encourage more people to follow that path? I know it's an expensive endeavor, but I don't know. That we have a lot of big horse organizations, and everybody needs a vet. So
yeah, I know that AQHA has a couple of scholarships for equine veterinarians. Of course, the AAP does through our own foundation, obviously, and many of those are supported by Zoetis and Merck and some of those folks as well. But I'm not sure if anybody else does other than AQHA. But
David, I'd be curious. I'd love to talk to the guys over at Morris Animal Foundation or Mars Equestrian or some of the, even Brooke, who are very dedicated to equine welfare and equine health and well-being. And maybe they would stand up some more scholarships or some more financial aid, because that would be the researchers or the individuals that they would need for future programs that they might do.
yeah, I think there are a lot of scholarships that are out there. Most of the ones that we offer, like I said, are through the Zoetis and Merck and industry, and they're $5,000 or $10,000, and so that's oftentimes they have $250,000 in debt, and so that's challenging. We have a partnership with Coyote Rock Ranch in Oregon that provides 3, and they're going to jump up to 4 $75,000 scholarships, which are life-changing. And so, but there's just there's just not that many people that are putting that kind of money into it, of course.
Eleanor?
Talking about other sources, and again, Julie, thank you for your comment about trying to get the word out. But the minute we got the word out on this program, we've gotten calls from people who want to help. And one person in particular said, I'd like to give $100,000, $25,000 a year for 4 years to help one student who needs it to do this. And we've had 2 other similar calls, and we've not even asked for a single dollar yet. And so I think that when people find out about this program, it's going to attract some individual donors that
That's
might
right.
complement the organizational ones that David, you mentioned, and Julie, you mentioned. And so, yes, private donations are always welcome. And this is a great opportunity
David,
to do so.
would the Foundation of the Horse be interested in doing a little special, I don't know, fundraiser, if you will, where individuals could donate to a program that's, you know, specific to helping with this kind of a scholarship kind of plan?
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, most of the we do have some individual veterinarians that donate to scholarship programs within the AAP, and it's mostly limited to members, existing members that are familiar with it. A lot of times a practice will contribute to the scholarship program to sort of, you know, pay it forward kind of thing. But we haven't had a lot of success from donors outside of the membership with regard to scholarship programs. Those are more, those resonate more with current members, but you know, we'd be open to any of that, obviously.
Yeah. John, you got any other thoughts about how we find resources or funding to make all of this really come to life?
Well, I think it's like you're doing. You have to publicize that these opportunities are out there and how we're actually going about trying to do something differently. You know, what the innovative programs that are out there, people want to contribute to something that's going to be successful, and they have to believe in it. So you have to sell what you're doing to them and show that it's going to make a difference. And so whether it's Lincoln Memorial or us or some other program, once you start to see the product of some of these programs, I think even at that point, you'll get a lot more, whether it's testimonials or just education about why we're different and how we're making a difference. That's going to really, I think, then bring forward a lot of people to contribute.
Yeah. Eleanor, we need to go over there and see Taylor Sheridan and get a little plug on Yellowstone. It would be hard to replace a Dr. Glenn Blodgett, but if they could make a little plea for the veterinary shortage, maybe we can get some individuals really interested.
Hang tight. I was at his house last night for a staff party with all the actors, so they're neighbors.
There you go. I can't tell you how much of a difference Yellowstone has made in our industry in the last few years. Just really.
Yeah, it has. And you know what? The viewership is higher than the NFL. No, so more to come on that. But Taylor Sheridan is a genius. He does all the writing himself, every word.
Yep. There's quite a few. I'm sitting here just spitballing, guys, because Sylvester Stallone was just at the Arab Nationals. We've got a couple of other celebrities who are huge horse enthusiasts that are out there that if we just got in some of the right ears, we might could get some little PR sound bites out of this thing.
Yeah.
So Dr. Green, were you following Kevin Costner around all last night at this point?
No, Kevin wasn't there, but I'll tell you what I did do. You know, the woman who plays the veterinarian on the Equine Veterinarian is I planted a seed with her that she ought to do a section on telemedicine, or have insert telemedicine in there, because they exemplify a lot of different things. And so I'll actually talk to Taylor about that. Maybe there are some issues that we can get out there and have them slip them in, so to speak.
Wow. Yeah.
Great. Well, I see that our time is almost up. Anybody else have a question for our panelists? I would encourage you to reach out to any of them. Eleanor's put her contact information in the chat. John, if you would do the same, throw your email in the chat, or David. So if somebody has a question, they know how to reach out to you, or maybe they have an idea that we hadn't come up with that would be something that would be helpful to explore. I'm really excited about this conversation. And it really makes me, David, think a little bit more about my youth engagement task force. You know, I've been doing this for 2 years now, and now I've got some more ideas to go back to those youth leaders with some ideas that we might could percolate amongst our youth to see how that might come into play too.
Great.
Eleanor knows for sure when we take youth groups, whether that be the quarter horse youth or the National Reining Horse Youth or the American Paint Horse Youth up on the Hill in Washington, they get in more doors than adults do because those congressional members love to visit with them. And this is one of those great subjects that congressional members don't know about. Us and youth and anybody out there could call your congressional member, make them aware of the shortage, ask them for some assistance in helping find resources to stand this kind of program up. I'm thinking, especially David, of that legislation that was providing funding for rural veterinarians. That's another avenue that we could continue to pursue out there. So lots of different possibilities.
Yeah, it's going to take a lot of things. I think. I don't think that there's one magic bullet, but I think that there's a lot of, everybody's identified the right things. We just need to keep moving the needle.
Great. Well, thank you again, everyone, for your time. We will have the recording edited and up on our website probably in the next day or two. So look for that. Feel free to share the link around and make people aware of this conversation. So have a great afternoon and reach out if you have questions or I can help you with anything.
Thank you, Julie. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
doing
Thank
this,
you.
Julie.
Yep.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
All right.
Eleanor, see you soon.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you.
bet.